Hello. Today we're going to be discussing constraints to leisure. And the first question I want to ask is, did you take the Leisure Motivation Questionnaire? What is your score on the different items, and what do you think this means? If you look to the bottom right, you can see my scores. If you were to rank them in chronological order, notice that social is one of the most important aspects or motivations for me to participate in recreation. The next is competency. It's important for me to learn a new skill and become competent. The third is risk-taking. I enjoy the aspect of trying something new. The fourth component is the mental challenge, and the last component for me is solitude. I would tell you I don't usually go out and participate in leisure or recreation alone. Clearly, I enjoy the social aspect and going out with friends or family. So that begs the question, what is motivation? And it is defined as the general desire or willingness of someone to do something, or the reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. For example, you are probably very motivated to complete this summer course and get a good grade. Why is that important? Because you would like a college degree so you can get a good job. That is a form of motivation. There are a few different ways we categorize motivation. One can be internal. That means that that's something we have a desire to do. Maybe you love to go on hikes. So on a Saturday morning, it is easy for you to get up and go out in the woods. Perhaps there's something else that externally motivates you. You don't always want to go to class on a Monday morning at 8 a.m., but you know that your peers will be there, maybe you have a group project, and certainly the professor takes attendance. That's considered external motivation. The next questions are, what does motivation have to do with recreation? Well, if someone's not motivated to participate, obviously they're not going to do it. And what kinds of things influence motivation? You can see there's a list of items, and we could list many more than are up here, but things that would motivate us to participate in leisure would be perhaps family and friends, doing things that we enjoy. Maybe it's something that's part of our culture. Maybe we do it with our girlfriends or our boyfriends. It can be influenced by companions, schedules. Maybe it's a habit that we have. We do something particular in certain weather. In the winters, we go snow skiing. In the summers, we go to the beach. But with all this motivation, you have to remember that there are factors that limit our ability to participate. And oftentimes those are lack of resources, which can include money, access to a facility, and generally our lack of time to do as many things as we'd like. Ask yourself for just a moment, if you could do anything, any leisure or recreation activity, what would it be? What have you always wanted to do but have not participated in? Once you think of that, list a few reasons why you haven't. We generally refer to those reasons you listed on why you haven't participated as constraints. Constraints are factors that limit people's participation in leisure activities, people's use of leisure services, or people's enjoyment of current activities. And generally, we put constraints into 3 levels, which are encountered hierarchically. The first is intrapersonal. And the way I like to think about intrapersonal is it's inside us. It's some psychological state that interacts with our leisure preference. It could be stress, depression, anxiety, our religion, our family, how they view the activity, if we've had prior socialization, if we think we even have any skill in doing it, and clearly whether it's appropriate for us to do it. So let me give you a personal example. I am scared of heights. I have always been scared of heights. My mother is scared of heights. If there was something I had to climb when we'd go travel, I was the first one who didn't want to do it. So later in life, in my 20s, I had friends who started a climbing business, and they asked me if I wanted to go climb rocks in West Virginia in the River Gorge, which is one of the most fabulous places to climb. I went out with a group of friends. I started to climb up the pitch, and by the time I got 3/4 of the way up, I was so scared I was in tears, and I refused to come down. I couldn't move. My hands were sweaty. I was nervous. Of course, I looked down, and I wasn't supposed to look down, and I stayed up on that rock wall for a good half an hour. Someone else had to climb up and talk me down. That is an interpersonal constraint. Cognitively, I know that I was safe. I was strapped in. Nothing was going to happen to me. But my heart was racing. I had so much anxiety. There was no way that I was going to enjoy that activity. And to be honest, I don't climb anymore. It is too stressful for me. I would never be able to negotiate that constraint to do it. But let's say I did. Let's say I got scared climbing my first time, but then I realized I really enjoyed it and I wanted to master that skill. Well, the next constraint I would have to work through is interpersonal. And you can think about this in a way that are like interstates. Interstates connect you to other cities and other states and other countries. The same thing for interpersonal constraints. That connects you to family and friends and people that you can participate in the leisure activity with. And so if I did negotiate my fear of heights, then the next step for me, if I wanted to continue climbing, was to find people to climb with. Now, if I was on campus, I might go to the SRC, I'd go to the gym, I might go to an actual climbing wall and try to make friends. So I would have that social group that I could go then climb with. And the third constraint is structural. And you can see that this has to do with your family cycle stage, your financial resources, seasons, climates, and schedules of work times, and just generally the availability of the opportunity. It would be very easy for me as a college student to climb. In Boone, we have a climbing wall. We have lots of rocks in the woods. I would not have a difficult time, if I didn't have fear of climbing, found friends to climb with, to actually go out and climb. On the other hand, if I was a family and I had very young children, I might not be able to have access to that as readily. Also, I might not be able to have money to go do something. In addition, the seasons play a large impact. If you love to go surfing and you live in Kansas, you will have to have the money and the resources to fly to the beach to go surfing. Just a little graphical representation. Intrapersonal are psychological states. Interpersonal are relationships. And structural are physical or environmental factors. There are 6 dimensions of constraints. One is accessibility. Do you even have the resources to go? Do you have a facility you can go to, or a beach you can go to, or mountains to go to, or a library? Do you even have access to the leisure activity that you want to participate in? Also, one is social isolation. What if you go try something new and you don't know anyone? Think about a time that maybe you did try a new activity and you weren't very good at it. And I know you think about an elementary, middle school, or high school gym, and you tried a new sport and maybe you were embarrassed or you felt silly. No one wants to feel that way. Also, there is a component of culture in constraints where you might do an activity that is not socially acceptable. For example, in a lot of developing countries, young girls do not play soccer. Boys play soccer. Girls might play other sports. So if you were a girl and wanted to play soccer, you might be socially isolated or made fun of by friends or family because that wasn't culturally acceptable. Of course, there are lots of personal reasons that someone doesn't participate in a leisure activity. In addition to cost, time commitments is a large one, and you can certainly understand that as a college student. You have lots of activities that are already scheduled, lots of work activities, and so to add a new leisure activity to learn one or find the time to do it is difficult. Think about working out. Some days you're just unable to work out or go run or lift weights or do things because there was too much going on during that day. And of course, our access to facilities. Is there a facility close? Is it open when we want to? All of these are important dimensions of constraints. And so in our field, what constraints are usually the most relevant to non-participation? The first one is work commitments. Facilities or areas are overcrowded. And when you think about our time schedules, people work 8 to 5. They will go to a park or go to a gym or do some type of leisure or recreation, from the hours of 5 to maybe 7 p.m. when people go home, eat dinner, and go to bed. Saturday mornings, if you want to play golf on the golf course, you have to make a tee time. Things are overcrowded because that's when everybody has the same time to participate. In addition, it's difficult to find others who want to participate. For example, maybe I want to learn to whitewater paddle. I don't know anyone who whitewater paddles. So how would I possibly be able to learn that activity and then overcome that interpersonal constraint of finding a friend to do it with? No opportunity to participate near my home. This is often one. There are lots of things that people want to do, specifically whether it's the oceans or the mountains, and you don't live in that area. And finally, family commitments. We all have obligations and commitments to keep up our home, go grocery shopping, care for our families, and that eats up a lot of time, leaving us with not enough time to participate. And the final component of constraints is the idea that we do negotiate them. Sure, we encounter all of these constraints regularly, but that doesn't always mean that it leads to non-participation. We have a few different types of negotiation. One is cognitive, that is that internal psychological. If we go back to my climbing example, I could overcome my fear of heights. I would psychologically negotiate that constraint and then I would start doing it. That personally didn't work for me, but it works for a lot of people. That actual example led me to not participate. I found other leisure activities I enjoyed more. The second type of negotiation is behavioral. I really want to get in shape. I'm going to be at the beach for spring break. I want to lose my 10 pounds I gained over the winter. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to make behavioral changes. I'm going to have better time management. I'm going to put in every day I'm going to the gym for 30 minutes, or I'm going to walk around campus for 30 minutes. And so I make a behavioral change. I might find a second job and earn more money so I can buy more equipment to do my leisure activity. Or if I've always wanted to go scuba dive, I'm going to take the PE course on campus, learn how to do it, and then I'm going to get an extra job this summer, save money, and go down to Key West and go scuba diving. So there are different ways we can negotiate our constraints. So just as a little wrap up, I want you to understand that there are 3 different kinds of constraints that could create non-participation, but finally we have this negotiation in which we can overcome and then participate in that leisure activity. Thank you.